Good morning, all of you. Am I audible? Okay. So we have been discussing the introduction to analysis of an algorithm, and we have observed that there are mainly uh, two things to analyze. One is the time an algorithm will require once it is being executed, and second is the space which is required. Now, among these two, again, space is less relevant due to uh, the increase in the primary memory, etc. But still, it is a constraint which is to be taken care of. But the most important one is to optimize the time any algorithm is required. So the time complexity is of a major concern with respect to the space complexity. So we have then discussed the space complexity, how to calculate it. So basically, when you are calculating the space complexity for any algorithm, we require to observe the variables or the data points which is going to require a space. So most of the algorithms has two component. One is a fixed component which irrespective of whatever input you are giving to an algorithm, this is the minimum space which is required. And there is a variable component. So this variable component depends on the type of input which you are giving to the algorithm. For example, if the algorithm is for sorting an array, then obviously, if you are using a bubble sort, then you require two nested loop, and that two nested loop requires two index variables. So normally we call it I and j. So irrespective of the size of the array, whether your array is of size 10 or it is of 10 million, you require these two variables minimum. But apart from this, when you are talking about the space complexity, then there is a variable component as well, which is called your array. So, and there is the size of array. So that size of array is actually a variable component when it comes to the space complexity. So normally the equation will be in form of this, something of n plus 3, where n is actually a variable component and then there is a fixed component. So it can be a linear equation most of the time. Now we have discussed these two algorithm, I think, and we have stopped at the recursive sum. Now we know that recursion means calling the same function again. So here, let us first go through this algorithm, what we are doing inside this. Recursive sum, two parameters, array A and size n. Now obviously, we want to calculate the sum of 10 numbers. Let's say the size of n is 10. So we want to calculate the summation of 10 numbers of an array. So what is the approach we are using recursion? When we are using a recursion, it means that we want to calculate the sum of 9 numbers and then you add 10th number into that. So that will give you the sum of 10 numbers. So if you write that in the equation, then equation will become something like this, that a of, or say rs of n is actually rs of n minus 1 plus a of n. So this is what the equation will look like. If I want to compute R sum of A and N, A is an array, N is the size of array. Then you have to first compute the R sum of A with N minus 1. So that's what we are doing here. And then there is the nth number. We are adding into that. that will give you the summation of A to N. But when you are doing this, every recursive algorithm must have the terminating condition. Otherwise, this goes into the infinite loop in the negative domain. So it will keep on doing n minus 1. So obviously, you need to stop this. And for that, every recursive algorithm will require stoppage condition, or you say terminating condition. You can use different terms for that. But you must have something which will stop recursion. So here that condition is something like this. So if you are checking initially the value of n, if your n is less than or equal to 0, then you return 0. Why it is less than or equal to 0? Because we are assuming that array index starts with 1. Here we assume that array index starts with 1. That's why when your n becomes 0 over here, that means it's actually a stoppage condition. So at that time you return 0. That means no value, no contribution to the final outcome. So this is my algorithm. I hope you have understood the algorithm. Let us try to observe the space complexity. Now, any recursive algorithm will require to store or preserve this address, the return address. So if you go through this one, there are mainly three variables, I suppose. One is A, second is N, and third one is the return address, which this is. So if you want to store this, then space required is to store the value of N, to store the value of return address, and then to store the value of A. Now A is an array, and we know that you are not going to create every time a new array. Here you are not going to create a new array every time, so you could require basically one array, and you are just playing with the pointers. So that's why you have to store it once only. So that means you need to store this pointer to A. So that means if I compute the space complexity for a single instance, then it is a value of n. That means 3. You require 3 space to store this. Now you need to observe how many times you are calling this. Right? So if your value is n, let's say your value is 5. So you are calling it once for value of 5, then 5 will make a call to 4. Again, this 4 will make a call to 3, so that's third time. Then this 3 will make a call to 2, so that is fourth. 2 will make a call for 1, that is 5. And again, 1 will make a call for 0, so that is sixth. So that means if I enter the value of n, then I am calling this function n plus 1 times. So that means n plus 1 time you need to store all these 3 values. So that is n plus 1 into 3. So it is comes out to be something in this form. Space complexity is equal to n plus 1 into 3. So I hope you understood this. We'll discuss more example, then it will be more clear. But this is how you are going to compute the space complexity. You need to observe what is the type of variable, how many variables, what is the type of the variable, and then you add all that requirements together, and you will come up with some kind of an equation. That equation will have some fixed component and some variable component. Now, when it comes to the time complexity, again, here also you require 2 components. One is a fixed time, computational time, and second is a variable time, which depends on the runtime. So again, if I take the bubble sort example, if we take a bubble sort or any intelligent sorting technique, not just bubble sort, then let's say quick sort. And if you go for the quick sort, and if your array is already sorted, then obviously your time will be saved. But if your array is inversely sorted, then your time will be different. So point over here is that runtime depends on the instance characteristic. Instance characteristic means that what is the size and type and how the values are organized in an input. So every time whenever we are computing the time complexity, these are the two components which are of prime importance: compile time and run time. Compile time is always going to be constant, and run time always depends on the instance characteristics. So it is always function of input. So function of input means that it depends on the input only. For example, the example which we have taken, the time which required by quick sort depends on the input array which you are submitting. If your array which you are going to sort is already sorted, then time required is less compared to if your array which you want to sort is inversely sorted. That means you want to sort it in ascending order, but the input is in descending order. So in that case, quick sort will require more time. So that is what we mean by the compile time and the run time. So any of this time complexity equation will be of something like this. You have some kind of a constant, and then some component which is which depends on the instance characteristic. Again, this is a part of an algorithm. You have another part as well. Again, that requires some constant and some instance or the variable part. So in general, any time complexity equation will be of this form, where CA, CB are the constant, and the add and subtract, for example, these are just an example. You can say it's F1 and F2. It can be any function which is part of that particular algorithm. So that kind of an equation you can generate. But this is what do we do in mathematical analytics. When we do a mathematical analytics, then we do this kind of an accurate stuff. But if it is an asymptotic analysis, which we are going to discuss next, then you don't require all this detailed characteristic of any algorithm, because even if you have it, to have and to prepare this kind of an equation for every algorithm is very difficult. So normally what we do is we count and program step. So any asymptotic analysis, first input to the asymptotic analysis is this one. That is, you need to count the program step for any algorithm. Now let us understand what do we mean by program step. Okay. It's very simple actually. The program steps are syntactically or semantically meaningful segment of a program. Now the statement may sound you some kind of a serious stuff, but you need to understand the meaning of it. And that meaning says that when you write any algorithm, program step refers to those kind of a statement which is of importance. Let's say when you are writing an algorithm and you write a comment, so comment will not have any program step contribution. Similarly, when you declare something, integer I, again integer I is not going to have any program step contribution. So how do we count program step? For comment or declaration, the step is 0. Whenever you have some kind of an assignment statement, assignment means that A equals to B, or A equal to B plus 5, or C equal to 10, or D equal to hello. All these called an assignment statement. Or let's say you are doing a conditional checking. A is greater than 5, B is less than 5, something like that. So all comes under this category of statement, which is called an assignment or a relational statement. So the program count for those type of statement is 1. And then the third component which you need to take care is the iterative statements. Now iterative statements means that loop. So if you observe any algorithm, you may find that there is a repetition of something. Like in bubble sort, we run a loop twice. In binary search, again we run a loop. In linear search, we run a loop. Any algorithm you will take, You may require finding, let's say, a factorial, you require a loop. So majority of the algorithms are required some kind of the iterations, some kind of a control statement which keeps on executing depending on the program logic. So when you are having those type of statement, the program count depends on how many times that particular statement is going to be executed. So you need to apply some more knowledge, more contextual knowledge to that particular statement if you want to compute the program count for it. Even if you have not understood anything till this point, don't worry, just focus on this algorithm. Okay. Now we are writing an algorithm which is called the largest. As the name suggests, this algorithm is basically written to find out the largest number from an array. So array here is X and N is the size of array. Now if I write, or if I want to write this algorithm in simplest manner, what I will do, I will simply start from the first number. Initially, I will assume that maximum is my first number. Then I will check every number of an array with the maximum. And if I found something which is greater than maximum, then I will change or update the value of maximum to that number. So after running through the entire array, at the end, I will have the maximum number ready. So the point over here is, this is a very simple approach to find out maximum. There can be another approaches as well, but this is a very simple and simplest approach to find out the maximum of any array. So let us try to put it in the algorithm way. So you require one variable max, and you will assign that, or you will assume that the first number is maximum. So initially you are saying let max is equal to x of 1. Then obviously you want to run a loop, and that loop should run from second to the end of the array, because first number you have already assumed that my first number is maximum. So now again there is no need to check or compare that maximum with the first number. So usually you run a loop from a second one. So second to n. N is the total number of elements. So you will run a loop, and then for every number x of I, you will check if x of I, that means that number of an array, is greater than max. If x of I is greater than max, it means that I have found some number which is greater than the maximum which I have assumed. So that indicates that now I should change my maximum. So if this is true, then you are changing the value of maximum to x of I. Now remember, this is a mistake. It should be a small max. It should not be a capital one. So my max is updated to x of I. Once this loop is over, you can see that this at statement number 5 loop is over. Then I will simply say print max or return max. Here I am printing. Most of the time you will find the return. Is this algorithm clear? I hope it's clear. It's very simple. And let us focus on the right part or the right column, which we are more interested in, that is counting steps. So just apply these 3 rules. The first statement is max equal to x of 1. That means an assignment statement. So that means the step count is 1. Then second is an iterative statement. For I equal to 2 to n. Here you need to calculate first how many times this loop, or sorry, not this loop, but this statement is going to be executed. Okay. So in order to understand why this is n, you need to take a very simple example. Take some value of n, let's say 5. So your value of n is 5, right? So when your value of n is 5, let us start with I equal to 2. So you are executing this first time, I equal to 2 to n, that means I is less than n, so this will be executed. Then becomes I plus plus, so I becomes 3. Again 3 is less than or equal to n, so that's second time. Then again I plus plus, so I value becomes 4. 4 is again less than or equal to n, so that becomes third time this is executed. Then I becomes I plus plus, so that becomes 5. Again 5 is less than or equal to 5, so this will be executed. And again I plus plus, so I becomes 6, so that is the fifth time. So when your I becomes 6, 6 is not less than or equal to 5, so this will terminate. So that means if my value of n is equal to 5, this particular statement, that is statement number 2, is executing 5 times. You may argue that my size is 5, I'm starting with 2, that means I'm starting with the second number, still it is having step count as n. The reason for that is every for loop or every while loop will execute one more time than actual iteration, because of, I should not say loop will execute, but this terminating condition statement will be executed one more time, because it will come out of the loop when your condition becomes false. But you have to check even for that false condition, the loop or that control part or conditional checking part has to verify that false condition. So that means every loop, if your loop is running n time, and if it is a return in form of for loop or while loop, then this will execute n plus 1 time. Remember this, it's very important, and that will solve lots of your doubt and confusion when it comes to the calculating the time complexity, or when it comes to the calculating the step count. So if I see this is running 1 to n, then it has to become n plus 1, because 1 to n means that you are running full loop. So it always runs one more than what actually it is. So one more than, it means that it's n plus 1. Here we are starting with 2, that's why it is n. I hope you understood this. So this is my step number 2, which requires to be executed n time. Now let us go to the step number 3. Now first you need to observe that it is inside the step number 2. That means it is inside the loop. So whatever it is there inside this loop, it will be executed n. This is my value of n. So whatever is this number n, this particular segment will be executed minus 1. So if this is n, this is always going to be executed minus 1. Oh, sorry, n minus 1 time. So this is n minus 1, n minus 1 multiplied by, again this is what, it's an assignment, so it's plus 1. So n minus 1 into 1, that comes out to be n minus 1. Again assume that your array is sorted in ascending order, so every time you will find that this particular statement is true. So every time this will be executed, so that means again this will also executed n minus 1 time. So line number 3 n minus 1 time, line number 4 n minus 1 time, and then finally you have the final statement, that is print x. It comes into the category of assignment statement. So any print or any return or a equals to b, everything comes under this category 1. So that's why the step count for this is also 1. Then finally you need to add the step count for each of these statements. So here 1 plus n minus 1 plus n minus 1 plus 1. So that turns out to be 3n. It is a simple addition of all these figures or all these numbers. Have you understood this? Someone wants to ask me anything, then they can discuss. This is very important. Remember, your entire understanding of time complexity depends on this understanding. If you not understood this time, then you will face many problems when we are discussing time complexity of various algorithms or in subsequent topics. So you need to understand this very carefully, that how the exact step count is being calculated. So I'm moving forward. You can always stop me if you find any difficulties. Okay, so let us discuss few more examples that will make your understanding more clear. Focus one by one. Okay, no need to just look at everything, just focus on this part right now, that is an algorithm for sequential search. Now sequential search means that it's a linear search. So there are three inputs to this algorithm. One is an array. Deliberately I am using a different variable name so that it does not becomes the anonymous. So here I am using E as my array, then N is my size of an array, and K is an element which I want to search. So you can say it's a key element. So again, it's a linear search. Linear search means you want to start with the first element. You will go through each and every element inside an array. At every point of time, you will check whether the array element is equals to key element. And if it founds, then you will simply preserve that answer in some variable. Then finally, you can return that. So there are numerous approaches to deal with the result, but in general, this is one of them. So let us just first go through this algorithm quickly. Initially, you assume that element does not exist inside the array. So that's why you say answer is equal to -1. -1 indicates that because your array index starts with 0, here I am using deliberately it starts with 0. See, sometimes I use 0, sometimes I use 1. There is a reason for it actually. That reason is that you should understand the concept rather than remembers the things, right? So that's why I'm deliberately making sure that you got confused, because that is the only way to understand the actual context or actual semantics of the algorithms. So here I'm assuming that your array index starts with 0. So when I say answer is equal to -1, it indicates that my element key is not present at any point inside the array, because my array index starts with 0. It goes till n-1. There is no point where you have anything like -1. So initially I assume that answer is equal to -1. That means array element does not present. Then I run a simple loop. So I will start for I equal to 0. Because I am starting with 0, I will not go till n. I will simply go till n-1. Remember, if it's starting from first, then you go till n. If it starts from 0, then you go till n-1. So I am running this loop for I equal to 0 to n-1. At every instance of this loop, I will simply check. Again, this should be capital K, or here it should be small k. Okay. You can just consider these are same. So here it's k. If it is equals to the array element, that is E of I, then I say answer is equal to I. It means that my answer or my key is at position I. Now remember, I am not stopping this loop here. If I say break after this, then means that this loop will stop. But I am not stopping this loop here. So again, this goes inside the loop, and again, it will do the same thing. You may argue that why do you need to do this? But this, I am not saying this is an optimum sequential search. I am saying that this is one of the algorithm, which is, you can say it's a sequential search. So I am repeating this thing, and then finally I will return the answer. Answer will be -1, which indicates that key element not found. Anything which is greater than or equal to 0 indicates that key element is found at that particular position, and your position starts with 0. I hope you understood the algorithm. Then let us focus on the right part, that is your calculation of step count. The first statement, assignment, so step count is 1. Second statement, iteration, you need to find out how many times this loop is going to be executed. Again, I am running this loop full. It's 0 to n minus 1, which is similar to 1 to n. That means I am running the array for n times, or this loop n times. If I running this loop n times, then this statement has to be executed n plus 1 time. That plus 1 is for false condition. So that means the step count for line number 2 is n plus 1. Then step number 3. Again, this is inside this for loop. So whatever is the step count of this has to be multiplied by how many times this is going to be executed. This is going to be executed n time. Multiplied by, what is this? It's an assignment. So n multiplied by 1. That turns out to be n. And then step number 4. I'm saying answer is equal to I. And I'm saying it's 1. Now can anybody give me why I'm saying 1? And second, is it right to say it 1? Or is it wrong? Just look at the algorithm and tell me, can you say that that particular statement will execute it only once, considering all the input combinations or the possibilities? Yes. Can we say that this particular statement, that is statement number 4, will be executed only once? Yes, anyone else? Let's say my input is array of size 5. I'm entering array elements as 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. Okay, these are my array elements. Input is size 5. My array elements are 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. And I'm searching for 5. So that means my key value is also 5. And my key value is also 5. Now tell me how many times that line number 4 will be executed for this particular case. Array size is 5. All the elements of array contains 5 and my key element is also 5. How many times that line number 4 will be executed? 5 times, obviously, because every time that statement number 3 will be true. So what I mean to say is, this is wrong. You can't say that this will be executed once. This is right if I write fifth statement as break. Isn't it? If my fifth statement is break, it means that whenever I found an element inside an array, I'm not looking for the next element of an array. So again, if I stick to the same example, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, I'm looking for 5. So at first instance only, it will find that, okay, k is equal to, k is 5, e of I, e of 0 is also 5, 5 is equal to 5. That means it goes inside that particular step number 4, and then at step number 5 you are finding break. That indicates that this particular statement is not going to be executed n times, it will be executed once only. So this is not correct. Okay, this is not correct. It has to be n. If we write something like this, if you write a break over here, then you can say it's 1. because again you cannot say it as 1. Why this is not 1? Because step number 3, irrespective of value of k and value of e of I, this will be always executed. You may argue that, again, consider the next example. My array is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. What is my array? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I am looking for 6 inside an array, right? So what will happen? It will start from the 2. So 2 is not equal to 6, so it goes for the next element. So it comes 4. 4 is not equal to 6. Remember, this is executed second time. 4 is not equal to 6, so it goes to the third element. 6. 6 is equal to 6, and I have written break over here. Remember, 6 is equal to 6, so it is executed third time. But now 6 is equal to 6, that means your element is found. So answer is equal to I, and then there is a break. Then there is a break. That means now this loop is not going to execute further. When you have this kind of a scenario, you will not say that step count for this is n minus something like k, where k is actually the how many times this loop is going to be actually executed. Remember, there is nothing like actually executed. When you say you are computing a time complexity, you are not worried about the instance characteristics. So whether you are entering 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 and you are finding for 6, or you are entering 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 and you are finding for 6, you are not worried about that aspect. Remember, you have to strictly follow and assume that this will run full, irrespective of what is the outcome of this result, or irrespective of what will happen inside this for loop. This has to be executed every time. That is your assumption. And that's why we say that when you calculate a step, it will not give you the accurate time complexity. But again, we are not interested in accurate time complexity. We are interested in simplified approach to calculate the time requirement of any algorithm. And this is how we can simplify it. So you see a loop, you will assume that this will execute n plus 1 time. Anything inside a loop, you assume that it will run n time. It will run n time, because it's an assignment. Here also assignment, here also assignment. And then finally you run this statement number 5. So it gives you single. So that's why you just simply need to add all this. That will give you some running time. Let us focus on the next algorithm. This is something which we have already seen while discussing space complexity. It is a iterative sum. Iterative sum means you have given an array A of size n, and you want to find out the sum of all elements of that particular array. So that is my objective. The simplest approach is you start your sum value with 0 and you traverse through an entire array and add every element to that sum variable. So that's what we do over here. You initialize sum equal to 0. Then for I equal to 1 to n, you simply say sum plus equal to a of I. So sum equal to sum plus a of I. And finally, at the end, after the loop is over, you will simply say return sum. So this is a very simplest approach when you want to find out the sum of all elements of an array. Let us see the step count. First statement, step count is 1. The reason is it's an assignment. Sum is equal to 0. Then a loop which is running n times, so that's why it is n plus 1. Then anything inside that loop is n into this, n into, this is assignment, so n into 1, so that's why it is n. And finally this is 1, so this is 2n plus 3. Next, okay, matrix multiplication. This is a well-known algorithm. You have written it, you might have written it as well. So here it's a matrix multiplication. That means you are giving two matrices and you want to perform the multiplication of it. So A, B are two input matrix and C is my output matrix. So A is of size m cross n, and because matrix multiplication requires that number of rows in first matrix should be same as number of columns in the second matrix. So A is my first matrix, so if your size of A is m cross n, then B is my second matrix, so size of B is n cross p. So n rows and p columns. And as per matrix multiplication, size of outcome or output matrix will be m cross p. So these are the 6 parameters which I am giving. Simple approach to perform the matrix multiplication. So you will run a loop for all the rows of first column, then for all the columns of second matrix. So sorry, all the rows of first matrix, then all the columns of a second matrix, and then you will have third loop which will simply run number of columns of first matrix or number of rows of second matrix. That is the same. So this is a very simple approach. You perform this, then initially assume that Cij is equal to 0. Cij means that the value of the resultant matrix. So it is equal to this. See, I am not here to explain you what is the meaning of this algorithm because it requires some more time. I think you do have this in your syllabus, so you may discuss it that time. Our assumption or our objective is to calculate the step count. Okay, so let us focus on the first line. It is running 0 to m minus 1. That means 1 to m. That means the step count for this is m plus 1 because it is running full. So m plus 1. Then statement number 2. Remember, every other statement is inside the first for loop. So every other statement will be multiplied by n. Okay. Then you can independently focus on this statement. Again, this is 0 to p minus 1. That means it's 1 to p. That means it's p plus 1. So the step count for this is m into p plus 1. It is multiplied by m because it is inside this for loop. Then any other statement within this loop will be executing p times. So that's why you write m was there for this first initial for loop, multiply it by p, p and p, because all these 3 statements are inside this for loop. Okay. Then you have statement number 3. This is an assignment, so step count is 1. So you say m into p into 1. Then statement number 4, again this is an iteration. So 0 to n minus 1, that means 1 to n, that means it will execute n plus 1 time. So you say m into p into n plus 1. And every other thing inside this for loop will be executing n times. So that's why you say m into p into n. And then the step count of this is an assignment. A is equal to b. So that's why step count is 1. So this is multiplied by 1. And finally you say return C, then step count will be 1. Okay, here we are not returning anything because we have taken C as an input. So let us assume that you have a pointer to an array you have already given as an input, so you are not returning anything. It's a void return, and that's why the step count is not mentioned. Then finally you add this together, you will get this kind of an equation. So this is what a step count of this algorithm. I hope you understood this. Okay. Then I am not discussing this right now, but I assume that you will go through this matrix addition. You are supposed to be given 2 matrices of same size and you are computing the third matrix. So A and B are 2 matrices of size m cross n. So you simply run this twice loop. Again, this will run m plus 1 time, this will run n plus 1 time, and this will run 1 time. So that's why it is m plus 1. because it is inside this for loop multiplied by m, finally you will get this. This is Fibonacci. Okay, we are computing Fibonacci of n numbers. So sorry, this is printing Fibonacci up to n numbers. So if your n is less than or equal to 1, then simply write 1. Otherwise, you simply, this is a well-known logic, you take two variables, f1, because first Fibonacci number is 0, second Fibonacci number is 1. So f1 is equal to 0, f2 is 1. Then you run a loop which starts from 2 and you go till n. Then you compute f3 is equal to f1 plus f2, f1 is f2, f2 is f3. And then because you are printing every number, you say f3. And then finally return. So now if you do the step count, if condition, it's assignment, so 1. Again, this is you are writing something, so it's 1. Else, step count is 0. The reason for that is you are never going to execute else statement. What is executed is an if statement. So you are checking the condition. If your condition is true, you go in this loop. If your condition is false, you go into this loop straight away directly. You are never going to execute else part. So else is not a statement which actually consumes time. It is just the logic to separate out the flow of program or the algorithm. So that's why it is 0. Then this is an assignment. So 1, assignment 1. Again a loop 2 to n. That means it is running n minus 1 time. N minus 1 time loop is running. That means this statement is executing plus 1 more. So that's it's n minus 1 plus 1. That turns out to be n. Everything inside this loop will be executed n minus 1 times. So n minus 1 into assignment. So 1. N minus 1 into assignment. So 1. N minus 1 into assignment. So 1. Again assignment. So 1. So this is n minus 1, n minus 1, n minus 1, n minus 1. And finally you are returning, actually you are not returning anything. This should be 0. I don't know why it is written 1. So that's why it is 1, 1, 1, 1. You just add all this together, you will get 5n plus 1. Again, this is not time complexity, but this is an important step to compute the time complexity. Okay. I hope you understood this, how to calculate the step count for any given algorithm. Anything which you want to ask?